Hello, denizens of the Internet. It is my pleasure to present to you TV Guide's 1987 Fall Preview video. As we always do, let's start with the most significant news stories from 1987, according to me. Hu Yaobang, General Secretary of the Chinese Communist Party, is forced into retirement. I knew it. Terry Waite, the special envoy of the Archbishop of Canterbury in Lebanon, is kidnapped in Beirut. A second Unabomber bomb explodes at a Salt Lake City computer store. U.S. President Ronald Reagan addresses the American people on the Iran-Contra affair. AZT is approved by the United States Food and Drug Administration for use in the treatment of HIV/AIDS. Michael Eisner and French Prime Minister Jacques Chirac sign an agreement to construct the 4,800 acres Euro Disney Resort. The 59th Academy Award takes place with Platoon winning Best Picture. Gestapo boss Klaus Barbie sentenced to life imprisonment. The Simpsons cartoon first appears as a series of shorts on The Tracy Ullman Show. Margaret Thatcher is re-elected for a third term. Canada introduces a $1 coin nicknamed the Loonie. The Supreme Court of the United States rules that a Louisiana law requiring that creation science be taught in public schools whenever evolution is taught is unconstitutional. Gustav Hasek resigns as General Secretary of the Communist Party of Czechoslovakia. I knew that was coming. The First Intifada begins in the Gaza Strip and West Bank. And Nikki Sixx, Motley Crue's bassist, overdoses on heroin and is declared clinically dead for 2 minutes before a paramedic revives him with 2 syringes full of adrenaline. Now, let's get on with TV Guide's Fall Preview 1987.
Beauty and the Beast, CBS. The adventures and romance of Vincent, a sensitive and cultured lion man living in a secret utopian society of outcasts in an underground sanctuary, and Catherine, a crusading assistant district attorney in Manhattan. Through an emotional bond connecting Vincent to Catherine, he comes to be her protector as well as the man she loves. Starring Ron Perlman, Linda Hamilton, Roy Dotrice, and Jay Acavoni. Lasted 2.5 seasons.
Sample episode. Free to walk the streets openly on Halloween, Vincent becomes the guardian of an Irish peace activist who's been targeted for assassination. This was a high-concept show to the extreme, but damn it if it didn't work. That was thanks to the amazing performances of Linda Hamilton and especially Ron Perlman in the lion makeup and the thoughtful producing and writing of one George R.R. Martin.
Buck James, ABC. Based on the television health personality Dr. Red Duke, Buck James focuses on the career and adventures of a Texas hospital emergency room chief who is also passionately devoted to ranching. Starring Dennis Weaver, Alberta Watson, Shannon Wilcox, and Elena Wall. Lasted 1 season.
Sample episode. Rebecca performs an elective hysterectomy and is criticized. Torrio is discriminated against because of his race. The show was basically McCloud in Scrubs, but it didn't catch on.
A Different World, NBC. A group of students at a historically black university struggle to make it through college, starring Lisa Bonet, Kadeem Hardison, Jasmine Guy, Daryl M. Bell, Charnel Brown, Cree Summer, Glynn Turman, and Dawn Lewis. Lasted 6 seasons.
Sample episode. Claire Huxtable gives a business etiquette seminar at Hillman. A Different World was a Carsey Werner spin-off of the super popular Cosby Show, but it suffered through casting changes the first year. Lisa Bonet got pregnant. Debbie Allen, brought on board to fix the problems of the first year, wanted to have Denise Huxtable portray an unwed mother at school, but yeah. Well, that was nixed by Cosby and the network. So Bonet was gone. Ironically, the show took off after Denise Huxtable left.
Dolly, ABC. a variety show starring guess who? Dolly Parton. Lasted 1 season. The networks continued to try to make variety shows work into the 80s, but without much success. It did feature Miss Piggy for 2 shows. Everything's Relative, CBS. The Beebe brothers, Julian, a divorced, hard-working 33-year-old businessman, and Scott, a single 25-year-old womanizing construction worker, share a loft apartment in the Soho section of Lower Manhattan despite their different lifestyles, values, careers, and social lives. Starring Jason Alexander, John Bolger, Gina Hecht, Tony Natoli, and Ann Jackson. Lasted 10 shows. Can't even find a sample episode description. Frank's Place, CBS. Set in New Orleans, Frank's Place chronicles the life of Frank Parrish, a well-to-do African-American professor at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island, who inherits a restaurant, Chez Louisiane, starring Tim Reed, Robert Harper, Daphne Reed, Francesca P. Roberts, Francis E. Williams. Lasted 1 season.
Sample episode. Ed, a fellow driver club member, has died. But this has not stopped his fellow drivers from taking him from the funeral home to the chaise for one last drink. Instead of taking him back, the drivers leave him at the chaise the next morning. Created by Hugh Wilson, the brains behind WKRP in Cincinnati, this was a really good show with an excellent cast. It was also shot with one camera and had no laugh track, which was kind of innovative for its time. It won an Emmy for outstanding writing for a comedy series. Rumor has it that CBS's CEO Lawrence Tish got mad at a show that insulted junk bond tycoons, of which Tish was one. And he had the show canceled.
Full House, ABC. A widowed sportscaster raises his 3 daughters with the assistance from his rock and roll brother-in-law and madcap comedian best friend, starring Bob Saget, John Stamos, David Coulier, Candace Cameron Bure, Jodie Sweetin, Mary Kate Olsen, Ashley Olsen, and Lori Loughlin. Lasted 8 unbelievable seasons.
Sample episode. The Tanners invite Cindy and Rusty over again for a backyard barbecue. Rusty writes a phony love letter which causes confusion as each member of the household reads it in turn, all believing it to be from a different person. We all know this was a huge hit, especially if you were an 11-year-old girl, which I wasn't. The only confusing part was when Full House fans went to see Bob Saget's stand-up shows, and they were shocked to see one of the most dirty and profane comics on the circuit. Very different from the Danny Turner on TV.
Hooperman, ABC. San Francisco cop Harry Hooperman inherits a rundown apartment building. Not having the time to maintain the building, Hooperman hires Susan as the person in charge. They begin a relationship. Starring John Ritter, Barbara Bosson, Felton Perry, Sidney Walsh, Clarence Felder, Alex Elias, and Joseph Gian. Lasted 2 seasons.
Sample episode. Hooperman tries to get through to a suicidal AIDS suspect. Stern meets her estranged husband's mistress, who provides some awkward details about their affair. Created by 2 powerhouses, Stephen Bochco and Terry Louise Fisher, cashing in on the popularity and charm of John Ritter. Unfortunately, the show didn't take off, but it was considered one of the progenitors of the dramedy category.
I Married Dora, ABC. A widower with kids hires a Hispanic housekeeper. To prevent her deportation, he marries her. They must conceal their arrangement while navigating the complexities of their newfound family dynamic. Starring Elizabeth Pena, Daniel Hugh Kelly, Sanford Jensen, Juliette Lewis, Jason Horst, and Henry Jones. Lasted 13 shows. Next. Jake and the Fat Man, CBS. J.L. Fatman McCabe is a Hawaiian-born tough former Honolulu Police Department officer turned Los Angeles District Attorney. He is teamed up with a handsome, happy-go-lucky special investigator named Jake Stiles. They often clash due to their different styles and personalities. Starring William Conrad, Joe Penny, Alan Campbell, and Olga Russell. Lasted 5 seasons.
Sample episode. McCabe's son, Dan, who is in prison, is beaten. When McCabe goes to see him, he is belligerent, so McCabe leaves. Later, when some convicts escape, Dan goes with them. Upon learning of this, McCabe orders that his son be found. I love this show. Conrad and Penny were great, the show was well written, and didn't make you feel stupid watching it.
The Law and Harry McGraw, CBS. Hey, that rhymes. Private Eye, Harry McGraw, a gambling addict, solves cases in Boston with help from attorney Ellie McGinnis, his receptionist niece, and McGinnis's nephew, while frequently losing money. Starring Jerry Orbach, Barbara Babcock, Julian Donald, Shay Farrell, and Earl Bowen. Lasted half a season. Harry McGraw was introduced on Murder, She Wrote. Thought they'd have a hit on their hands. Nope. Next. Legwork, CBS. The life and cases of a female ex-prosecutor turned private detective, starring Margaret Collin, Frances McDormand, and Patrick James Clark. 10 shows were shot, 6 shows were aired before it was canceled. Collins had very nice legs, but not good enough for a whole season. Next. My Two Dads, NBC. When Marcy Bradford dies, she leaves her teenage daughter Nicole in the custody of her 2 ex-boyfriends. I don't think that's legal. Straight-laced formal Michael and wild artist Joey, starring Paul Reiser, Greg Evigan, Stacey Keenan, and Florence Stanley. Lasted 3 seasons.
Sample episode. A visit from her rock and roll idol, Malcolm Odell, leaves Nicole starstruck until the musician loses his music-making ability. As God is my witness, I never watched a single episode.
The Oldest Rookie, CBS. A police veteran with a desk job wants to become a street cop again. This means he will get assigned a rookie partner, starring Paul Sorvino, D.W. Moffat, Raymond J. Berry, and Marshall Bell. Lasted half a season. It was up against Perfect Strangers and Highway to Heaven, so it didn't have a hope in hell. Next. Once a Hero, ABC. A comic book creator struggles with declining sales until his superhero Captain Justice crosses into the real world, renewing interest. Inspired, the creator revamps the storylines, convincing the owners to continue the comic, starring Milo O'Shea, Josh Blake, and Jeff Lester. Any guesses how long this lasted? If you picked 5 shows, you're a winner. Next.
Private Eye, NBC. 1950s Hollywood detective Jake Cleary loses his cop badge exposing corruption, becomes a PI after his brother's murder, aided by Johnny Betts. Starring Michael Woods, William Sadler, Josh Brolin, and Lisa Jane Persky. Lasted half a season, see? Next.
The Slap Maxwell Story, ABC. Slap Maxwell is an old-school sports writer, hardworking, uncompromised. Unfortunately, his type of writing doesn't fit well into the modern world. His wife wants to discover her own talents, which baffles Slap almost as much as his editor's fancy vocabulary. Starring Dabney Coleman, Brian Smiar, Megan Gallagher, and Bill Cobbs. Lasted 1 season.
This was one of many attempts at getting Dabney Coleman a TV series. The Slap Maxwell Story was Jay Tarsis's second attempt after failing with Buffalo Bill on NBC. Coleman was great at playing jerks. The problem was that no one wants to watch jerks as leads in TV shows. Well, except for House.
J.J. Starbuck, NBC. Billionaire J.J. Starbuck realizes his mistakes after great personal loss. He senses lies, solves murders impacting his life. With manager Charlie and niece Jill, he aids those in need, crossing paths with conman 10-Speed Turner, who joins them, starring Dale Robertson, Sean Weatherly, Jimmy Dean, and Ben Vereen. Lasted half a season.
Stephen J. Cannell gave it his best shot, as did Mike Post for the opening theme. The show ranked 48th with an average 13.3 rating. Not good enough.
Thirtysomething, ABC. The series focuses on a group of baby boomers in their 30s who live in Philadelphia and how they handle the lifestyle that dominates American culture during the 1980s, given their involvement in the early 1970s counterculture as young adults. Starring a lot of people: Timothy Busfield, Pauly Draper, Mel Harris, Peter Horton, Melanie Mayron, Ken Olin, and Patricia Wettig. Lasted 4 years.
Sample episode. A night out with friends degenerates as Nancy and Elliot's marital woes become apparent. Ramona and I loved this show. God damn it, I was 33 when this first aired, and for some reason, I identified with it. While not in every episode, I have to give a shout out to David Clennan's Miles Drentel, the best evil ad agency character before Mad Men. It was a really smartly written and acted show, and I was in love with Mel Harris. Don't tell Ramona.
Tour of Duty, CBS. This series offers an unflinching look at the tours of duty of several members of a platoon during the Vietnam War. Death is inevitable in war. The protagonists face the Viet Cong, social disapproval, and sometimes themselves. Starring Terrence Knox, Stephen Caffrey, Tony Becker, Ramon Franco, Miguel A. Nunez Jr., and Stan Foster. Lasted 3 seasons.
Sample episode. The platoon is assigned to defend Firebase Ladybird under siege by a regiment of North Vietnamese troops. At the same time, they come under siege by NVA soldiers, and they are assigned a new ambitious commander who complicates an already dangerous situation. Tour of Duty was, for its time, was very realistic, and they killed off favorite characters, so you were always on tenterhooks.
WiseGuys, CBS. Vincent Terranova is an agent with the Organized Crime Bureau, infiltrating dangerous criminal organizations, struggling to remain true to himself while becoming close to the criminal leaders he has sworn to bring down. Starring Ken Wall, Jonathan Banks, and Jim Burns. Lasted 4 seasons.
Sample episode. An outraged Sonny Stillgrave accuses Vinny of betraying him to his arch-rival, then realizes the devastating truth that his paisan is an undercover federal agent. Yeah. Another Stephen J. Cannell show, and this one really cooked. Wall was intense, and so was his hair. And who didn't like Jonathan Banks? Kevin Spacey showed up in several episodes.
A Year in the Life, NBC. Joe Gardner, a child of the Depression, is a successful plastics manufacturer in Seattle, Washington. After his wife dies, his 4 adult children move back in, starring Richard Kiley, Trey Ames, Adam Arkin, Jane Atkinson, David Oliver, and Sarah Jessica Parker. Lasted 1 season. Beverly Hills Buntz, NBC. Norman Buntz, a gruff and somewhat ethically questionable detective, leaves the inner city and heads to the sunny climes of Southern California, where he opens up a detective agency. Starring Dennis Franz, Peter Jurassic, and Dana Wheeler-Nicholson. Lasted half a season. This was a strange MTM half-hour comedy spin-off from Hill Street Blues. The only highlight for me was Peter Jurassic, who played Londo Mollari in Babylon 5. Mama's Boy, NBC. Jake McCaskey is a 40-year-old man. When his father died, he decides to let his mother, Molly, move in with him, and she treats him like a boy. Starring Bruce Weitz and Nancy Walker. Lasted 6 episodes. A creation of the talented Susan Harris that was weirdly pitched as individual specials. NBC couldn't decide if it was a series or not, and the not won.
That's it, denizens, for TV Guide's Fall Preview 1987. Did you watch any of the shows? What were your favorite memories? The next TV Guide Fall Preview issue be seeing you.